All right. Welcome, guys. So this is episode 3 of the Own It podcast, and I have the man, the legend, Thom Shea. A little bit of background on Thom. He's the senior chief, 23 years of service in the military with distinguished valor, 3 different tours, deployments. He's a Navy SEAL, Silver Star, Bronze Star, Valor. The guy is just the man. He's a published author. He's got a great book that I actually read several months ago. I own the book, Unbreakable. Amazing book. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much, Thom. How you doing today, brother?
Well, thanks for having me. That life seems kind of long ago, but
Yeah.
Thanks for the intro.
Yeah. So one of the things I love so much that you were actually just saying to me earlier is that everybody has a level of toughness in them that they can tap into. But people just don't seem to value that as much these days. You know, everybody kind of wants the easier, faster thing. And when it comes to running a business or just, leading yourself and living your life in your own way, it requires a degree of toughness to kind of go against the grain and do your own thing. What are your thoughts on that? How do you think people should be leading themselves in this day and age that they're not doing?
Well, I don't know if I wouldn't say going against the grain is necessary, but going back to your question of that we were talking about offline was, I think everybody has a level of toughness in them they need to tap more. And the society that we have now is not a fault to anybody, but it's virtual. And it's hack based. Like everybody wants to hack the real solution. And the real solution is it takes 3 freaking years to successfully break from a startup into a legit business if you want to look at business. And we were talking about ultramarathon running. Not everybody would want to do something like that, but it takes a year to prepare. Nobody has that fortitude anymore. Nobody wants to even prepare for anything of value because it takes too long. And you can seemingly download hacks to hack, what it takes. It doesn't work. None of those hacks work past the hacking of it. But when you learn like the old school method to be successful in anything, it's time. You got to keep hammering at it until you solve it. And it may take you a year, 100 iterations of failure to get the 101st one to work. And that method always works. It's just people don't have the balls to do it that way.
Yeah. Do you think that most of it is just taking action and just trying and failing and doing it by trial and error? Or is it, would you put more emphasis on following strategies, reading books, and, because I know a lot of people really like to analyze stuff, and more often than not, like I help people with their businesses and marketing and stuff like that. And, it's not execution that's their problem. It's not that they're doing too much execution for the most part. It's that most people overanalyze stuff. But I think it's a balance. How much of it is studying strategy versus just brute force and just preparing, if you're talking about like an ultra marathon, just putting in brute miles and, anything like that. What do you think?
Gosh, if you were to put a linear method to success, and I think there's a linear method to it. One is to know that eventually you're going to have to execute, and execution is the bear. Everything falls apart in execution, whether it's athletically, whether it's in business, even relationships. Marriage is really cool until you get married, and then you got to execute on the damn thing. You know what I mean? And but what I think where people fall apart, whether it be in the SEAL community, whether it be in business, whether it be any athletic endeavor, is the first thing you have to do is figure out the right skill set up front. And I would assume marketing is another way to look at that. You can't just throw spaghetti on the wall and hope that it works. You can execute on throwing spaghetti for 1,000 years.
Right.
So you can't move quickly to execution. You can get paralyzed by analyzing everything. Because you analyze on Monday, it might not be the right day to look at it. Maybe you have to look at it after 100 days before you make an analytical approach. The first thing to do is to figure out what's the right method, skill set to acquire before you then move to execution. And then get good at that skill set. And then in execution, it's a whole different mindset. And but everybody wants to hack all that stuff and jump to what's seemingly easy.
Right.
And it never works.
They want the quick results.
Yeah. And it never works. There's no book that actually solves doing it quickly, ever.
No. It's just, there's too many little things that you have to learn, like I play guitar. I've been playing music for pretty much my whole life. And it only seems like I've gotten decent at it in my 20th year of playing. There's just so many little things that have to kind of click. But obviously, doing things that you've done, like being in the SEAL teams, you're playing at such a high level that there's no room for error. The stuff that they teach you, like pool competency and buds and everything like that, you have to learn quickly or you're dropped and your whole dream is crushed, I'd assume. So
I don't know if that's accurate. And I think it's a misnomer about it's just not accurate.
Oh, okay.
There's a truth about the idea that there's high level application, or whatever words you used. We don't plan at high level. We plan at basic level. And the problem is you have to learn 100 basic skill sets. And then you plan them to be, you're able to do them at night when you're tired and you can't speak, which is another basic level. To the outside observer, it looks like it's all advanced and high level and strategic, and only a few people in the world can do that. But in execution, it's all very basic stuff. And, more to the point is going back to what we said as well, do basic things more than you think you should. And get out of the notion that there's an advanced technique out there that's going to make anything better. And, going through SEAL training, it's not really that difficult. It's just every single moment of every day is a test. And the tests aren't even difficult. Running 4 miles in 32 minutes is, if anybody can really do that. But can you do it at 3 o'clock in the morning when the day before, you got beat up and you're tired and somebody's yelling at you? So it's not that anything great is ever advanced. It's just, can you mentally process it on a basic level? Long-winded way of saying, do the basics better than anybody else.
Wow. Yeah, the simple things are often most important and most profound. When you say that, I think about some people that I'm talking to about growing their business. And, the most important thing in business for most entrepreneurs is sales. Getting good at understanding what you're selling, understanding, who's buying it. And it's like the most simple, basic things, like improve your product, make sure that your product is good and solves a problem. It's the most obvious thing, yet it's the most overlooked in business. In training boxing or learning to fight, everybody wants to do, they want to go and do Krav Maga or something, which is great, or they want to do Systema or something. But, what I suggest to people is just go shadow box, learn to throw a good jab, throw a good 1, 2, 3, learn to do that, learn to defend a takedown, just practice, the basics more or less. And you're going to be better than 99% of other people. If you get really good at throwing a jab, you're going to stand a good chance at least keeping most people away. But yeah, exactly. So that's awesome. That's awesome. I had a few requests of questions from my friends as to what to ask you. I've been polling people, like, what can I ask Thom when I have him on the podcast? And I had I even had some really dumb questions.
Always.
I had some really dumb questions, which I actually got mad at one guy for even asking. He's like, oh, I'm sure you've heard it all. He's like, oh yeah, ask him how many people he's killed in combat. I'm like, dude, that's an extremely disrespectful question, right? Like, I was like, I'm not even going to ask that because that's, it's not a cool thing to ask. So, you get that. And then you get questions like, what inspired you to join the SEALs? Why do that? You get questions like, I guess I could even just ask you, what are the most annoying questions you get as a retired?
I don't think I'm annoyed at it now that I'm 50 because people are asking it based on what they want to hear.
Right.
I think I've learned patience with age. In the community, it's very relative how many people you've killed and how many combat missions that you're on inside the community. Oh. Hearing those numbers on the outside makes no difference to anybody. Right. Like even Chris Kyle killing over 200 people. Inside the community, it's relative. So who cares on the outside how many he did? It's it doesn't really matter so much. And but the annoying ones are things that are not even closely related to anything I've ever done.
Right. Okay. Such as what?
What is my opinion about, some political issue and how it pertains to the military? I don't even know how to answer those. Like, what do I think of women in the SEAL teams? I have no idea.
Right.
It's not something that hits my windshield when I drive down the road.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. What are some of the most interesting questions that you've been asked?
How I decided to take on being a SEAL. I think it's interesting because people are always faced with, gosh, I have 100 decisions to make. Which one should I make? That's really why people ask that question. And I think it's a good one to begin to unfold, at least, as an old dude now. The reason why I chose to be a SEAL, and most of the guys that entered the SEAL program, is all the other shit that I tried didn't work. Mm. And very few people, a couple, I would say if there's 100 SEALs in front of you, 2 have had no problems in their life. They're on like an upward trajectory. The rest had hit bottom and decided, well, it can't get any worse than this. I'm just going to do something that I really want to do. And for some reason, they gravitate to the SEAL community. And I had actually flunked out of West Point. And I'm like, well, it's over. And I had a mentor at that point in time saying, what is it that you always want to do and think about? I'm like, well, it's kind of embarrassing. I always wanted to be a SEAL. And he's like, if you don't pursue that to the point where it works or doesn't, you're going to fail in life. And I'm like, well, hey, guy's named Pat. I said, the only problem is, Pat, I can't swim. And he goes, who cares? Commit to it and you'll find a solution if you're going to make it. So I actually signed up for the SEAL program and I couldn't swim. Wow. And I figured it out. And that was one of the biggest learning lessons is once you commit to something, you will solve it more predictably by somebody that's on the fence.
What does commitment mean to you?
No backup plan.
No backup plan.
Yep.
Burn all bridges.
Yep. Burn them all. Don't even think about them when it gets tough, because things get tough.
Yeah.
I'm sure things get tough, for you or for your clients. And it gets really tough if you're not committed, because if you got a way to get out of it, you'll take it. But if you stay in it, you'll see light through the forest, and you'll have the mental fortitude to suffer long enough to get to the end. And it's a travesty that there's not a class taught on commitment.
I completely agree. I mean, that's I think that's what kills most people, frankly, kills their dreams, at least. You know, they have dreams of, you know, owning their own business, not having a job, doing whatever, you know, whatever their dream is. And then they just rationalize and they say, oh, you know, it's too hard. I'm just going to go and get this job, or I'm going to go and do this other thing, or I'm going to settle for this relationship with this person that isn't really what I want. But I'm just going to do it because it's not as painful and I don't see the end. You know, I don't know if I can make it. I don't know if I have what it takes. So maybe it was interesting when you were saying that you hit a bottom before you joined the SEAL team. You know, I personally identify with that, with some of the goals I pursued. I was at such a low point that I had nothing else. I mean, I was like, you know, hey, you know, I might as well go for this because I don't have shit else really.
Right. Yeah.
And it's not that it worked out. It was just that I had no other choice, that I just did whatever it took to make it work. At least, you know, that was what I did.
That's the primer of what creates successful people, is no way out, or no other way to do it. The smart people don't have an out. They know, you know, what happens if things don't work. I know I can do something else, but they don't keep that in their back pocket. And, you know, it's just, there's no other method. You got to give yourself no other solution. Like, you know, whether it be marriage or if you're not married, trying to find somebody that you're going to be compatible to or with. Dude, commit.
Yeah.
Commit, leave. You know, don't even try. Just, I don't think she's the right girl or he's the right guy. Leave. Don't waste any more time. Find somebody that you're like, wow, I see it. I could spend another 2 days with her, you know. And the biggest, you know, in consulting and business, the biggest travesty is nobody wants to be committed.
Everybody's in between, like kind
in between. Well, what if it doesn't work? Let's look at it again. Okay. Let's look at it again if you want to. But Monday we're executing, and whoever doesn't want to do that, leave.
Right.
But you know, bosses have a trouble with that too, is being 100% committed, because you never know how things are going to play out.
Yeah.
They're going to play out shitty if you don't commit. That's for sure.
Yeah. And that leads me very nicely to the next question. How do you deal with fear? Because fear obviously is what keeps people in that middle state of like not committing to something.
You know, a lot of people ask that because one thing that they beat out of you in the SEAL program is fear. But how a SEAL is going to look at fear is different than how society does. Fear is an emotional response, a programmed emotional response to something. And once you realize that's what fear is, then you can train yourself to not have that freeze up emotional response. If you think fear is real, you're stuffed. If you really think you're going to die doing something, that's why people quit SEAL training, is they think it's going to get worse, and their bodies shut down. And then the instructors see that you're reacting like, you know, soft, and then they double down on you to get you to encounter something harder. And they'll threaten to kill you, and they'll threaten to make it worse. The thing to do with fear is and you ask the question, here's the answer. Everything that you're afraid of, you have to go do. You have to. If you're afraid to, you know, public speak, go public speak. It's the only way to beat it. You can't avoid it. You have to go face it and deal with it until it's gone. And like if you're afraid of risk, you got to deal with that. If you're afraid to look bad, go out and look bad. Get that out of your system so that you can then take action in the face of all that stuff that you're afraid of.
What about I was reading this really great book. It's a psychology book by Ernest Becker called The Denial of Death. Amazing book. But I feel like you'd have better answers than, that guy would. How do you deal with the fear of death? Because that guy hypothesizes that a large part of what we do as human beings is to kind of deny the fact or rationalize that we're going to die. But obviously, somebody that's seen, been on deployment and stuff like that, they've dealt with that in a very intimate way. So how do you deal with the fear of death?
There are 5 primary fears. Even though you didn't ask this question, there are 5. Regarding health, like your body, it's the fear of death, that if I do something, I could die. And your ability to learn, your biggest fear is that you'll be found out that you're stupid. People are so afraid that somebody's going to find out that they're dumb. It predicates their actions. People are so afraid they're going to die, it predicates their actions. In wealth development, like business, people are afraid of loss. They fear loss. And that hinders them in the business world. In relationships, obviously, it's the fear of being alone. And spiritual development it's the biggest fear that life is empty and meaningless. So those 5 primary fears prevent people from a lot of things. The problem with those is they'll all happen.
Yeah.
You're going to die. You're going to lose. You're going to be alone. Somebody's going to find out that you're stupid. And everything is empty and meaningless. So in the fears of dying space in combat, you have to, through training, they make you overcome the fear of dying. Because every time you go out, somebody in training notionally dies. So you have to overcome that. You deal with that. You have to go mock check in with their spouse. You have to go through that whole mechanism. And then the next exercise, overwhelming odds, where there's no way to win. Next exercise, they'll shoot the top guy. And you're like, dude, well, I've seen it so many times. Let's just go do shit. Let's just go do what we're supposed to do. If you die, thank you for coming. We'll help your family out, but we'll keep going. And so eventually you stop thinking about death. You're like, oh, okay, you're going to threaten to kill me? Dude, for 20 years, somebody's been threatening to kill me. It hasn't happened yet. Let's just go do it the way that we've trained to do it, in spite of all those things that come up in your head. And so I don't remember being afraid that I was going to die. Maybe once or twice when it got overwhelming. And then all I had to do is just go back to the basics. Pick my gun up and shoot it, even though we're overwhelmed. Okay, well, hell, I have 30 rounds in my gun. Then there's 20 guys in front of me. Okay, I can figure that out. But yeah, I don't remember fearing that I was going to die.
That's legit. And did training alone do that for you, or was it the actual deployments and being in real situations of life and death that eventually kind of beat that out of you, so to speak?
Training in the SEAL program is probably 6 times harder than combat.
Wow.
So combat was welcome. It was the only time you could win. In the SEAL program, they never reward you. They never tell you you're doing good. If things are going well, they'll break it apart so that you have to keep overcoming problems that are overwhelming. And then you go on deployment and you're like, oh shit, that was easy.
Wow.
And so the training, if corporations could figure out training, the whole world will change. But through training, you break all your bad habits. And through overwhelming training is where you become successful. If you're learning on deployment and you're learning in combat, you're going to die. Combat's more just application of everything that you've learned and doing it really quickly and really well. And but a lot of people don't understand that.
Hmm.
That, you know, other military units may do it differently.
Hmm.
A lot of units are not trained up enough to endure sustained combat.
Wow.
And the SEAL teams, you're like, oh, whatever. I can do 6 months on my head. It's okay.
Wow. So that's just because it's so the training is so brutal. They don't allow you to win. They're just constantly just breaking you down emotionally. Just not patting you on the back at all, just giving you constant negative feedback. And then
It's not really negative. They just don't. They don't make you. They don't say, "How are you feeling about this training?" They're like, "I don't give a shit. What did you do right? What did you do wrong? Okay, good. Go practice the things you did wrong and overcome them, and then we'll do it again tomorrow." And there's not. I can't say. I don't remember using the word negative, but there's not a lot of negativity in the training, other than basic training where they yell at you. But in combat training to get ready to go, there's not a lot of negative stuff. There's just a lot of work to do, a lot of stuff to learn, and nobody's really negative towards each other. Like, how can I help you? You look like you're depressed. What do you need from me today? And if you're feeling bad, everybody's like, dude, sorry, we got to go out and do this shit. Right. Wipe your butt. Let's go. Who cares? If you have trouble at home, deal with it quick. If you can't, bye. And so there's just straightforward, very clean communications in an organization that is not worried about, the feeling side of it.
Copy. How can we apply some of these lessons to maybe just life in general? Maybe just being better as civilians, as just like normal people going about our lives and our relationships, our eating, our training, just the way that we live our lives. How can we kind of, be better based upon that type of, clean communication, just being the best that we can be?
Good question. I would say the predicate to being better is be goal-oriented, tangible, clear goals that what am I going to do, where am I going to do it, and when is it going to happen? And be more goal-oriented than you think you need to be. Then once you have a goal, then you can figure out what basic things that you can do that you have to learn to do to accomplish the goal. Like you said, guitar, learn 2 chords and 1 note. Don't learn 100. Just learn a couple chords first until you can do them without your brain thinking about it. So how long does that take? Who cares? Don't go to advance or to step 2 until step 1 is there. And people don't have that patience. Like, I want to make $1 million. Okay, what time limit do you have? This year. Ain't going to happen. Unless you rob a bank, the shit ain't going to happen,
Make $10 first.
Yeah, learn how to make $10 and learn how to make 1 call a day if you're a salesperson. Just 1. Not 50, 1. And that becomes hard. But once you really master the simplicity, the difficult, you can just keep tranching off as simple things. I actually know people make things way too complicated.
So I have a question for you. So in terms of scheduling and just blocking out your day, do you think that it's okay to just kind of roughly block out your day and say, like, every day I'm going to do 5 things. I'm going to do reading. I'm going to do writing. I'm going to do my work. I'm going to exercise, eat clean, and be social, with my family, relationships. Yep. Or do you think it's better to, just strictly implement from 6 to 8 a.m. This is what I'm doing. 8 to 10. This is what I'm doing, etc.
Well, I can tell you what successful people do is they're rigid in their time allotment. And I've just put it on the table. Most successful people spend right when they wake up and right before they go to bed, either praying or meditating or doing affirmations for about 10 minutes. That is non-negotiable. That's 20 minutes out of your day. The next thing that they do is they check in with their significant relationships. So after getting up, drinking your little coffee, you check in with your significant relationships. And then most successful people do their workout before they go to work, or some type of workout where their body is now primed and ready to absorb the ass kicking that the day is going to give you. So the time allotment for that is 10 minutes, 20 minutes with a relationship, and about an hour of a workout. And then the rest of the day is pursuing work. And then they kind of do it in reverse order at night. They do some kind of stretch, workout. They check back in with relationships, and then they affirmations or meditate or pray or whatever religion that you are. And they do that cycle all the time, whether they travel, the people that do that well actually work for 3 to 4 hours a day.
Right.
On point, where they're on point,
right.
Non-negotiable. I'm doing, marketing for an hour. I'm doing sales for an hour, and I'm doing admin work for an hour. And then they're adaptable for what the day brings and overcoming problems that were unforeseen. So that gives people about 6 hours on point, so to speak, through every day that they encounter. And they kick out everything else that isn't part of that. The rest of us don't. We kind of go, I don't know what's going to happen today. Well, shit, you can still pray. Yeah. You can still, even if you're not married, write an email to somebody that, is on your team. Here's what I'm going to do today, Bubba. What are you going to do today? And then if you're traveling, do push-ups in your hotel room. And, at least eat one thing that day that's going to be good for your body. And the people that do that are very successful. The people that don't, you just never know what's going to happen because nothing can be coordinated during your day.
Right. Awesome. So a couple questions there is what workouts are you currently doing? What's your training like? Because if you haven't read Thom's book, which I highly recommend, Unbreakable, Thom is a ultra marathon athlete. And, that chapter in his book is absolutely insane. Definitely recommend reading a book about that. But I'm curious, what is your training like? Because you look like you're pretty yoked right now. You don't look like a typical ultra marathon type.
Yeah, I wish I was skinnier. That's the next year's pursuit. So I don't know if I recommend this. I'll try to break it down to this simple. Okay. I do things that I cannot do. So if running a half marathon doesn't inspire me. Even running a marathon, I'm like, I've done them. It doesn't wake me up in the morning. So my goal is trying to run a distance that I can't figure it out. So 50K up to 100 miles. And what I do on a daily basis is I run for an hour. I break everything down into thirds, which I highly recommend everybody in the planet, breaking everything down into 3 simple things. Run, stretch, and drink and eat well. So that accounts for about 3 hours of my day where I'm on point health-wise. I do more, but I have to make sure I do 3 basic things. And I normally do my athletic stuff before the day starts. Because sometimes however tough you are, the day kicks your ass and you never get to it. And if you have kids, you can dream in one hand and poop in the other. The kids change shit. So I try to accomplish all the me stuff before the day starts. And those 3 simple things, if people apply them, they can do ultra marathons.
Wow. Well, ultra marathon is 50K?
50K and above.
50K.
Anything over a marathon.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's unfathomable. Like if you're starting out, maybe you can run a 5K in a decent time. What is the training gap? Because like for me, every day I try to run like between 3 to 5 miles. I lift, I do my little MMA training or whatever. But to go to something like a marathon or an ultra marathon, I mean, that's crazy. That's like running around Manhattan 5 times, like 4 times.
It's actually much simpler than you think. If you are able to run 5 miles a day for 21 days straight, you have set the basics or the basis for doing long distance running. Until you can run 5 miles a day and stretch for at least 20 minutes every single day and control your food and hydration for 21 days straight, you don't try to tackle something big. And then there's a lot of other details to that, but and I've trained a lot of people now to run ultras from couch potato to ultra in about 4 months.
Wow.
Not competitive. Competitive is a whole different mindset.
Right.
And everybody wants to compete. Dude, don't worry about competition.
Yeah.
Completion. Try to do something very difficult and just get it done. And your learning is better, but imagine 3 simple things. Can you overcome the day-to-day grind of running 5 miles a day by overcoming the weather in New York City, the traffic, the shit that changes that you may not have control of? By doing that for 21 days, you have really beat the odds. I didn't say how fast you should go. Even if you walk it, you'll beat the odds. And then you'll learn a lot about how to stretch, what parts of your body, because you're going to stretch the problems of your body, all the tightnesses that you get by running. And then learning, wow, all that caffeine probably wasn't that helpful because I'm tired. Or, wow, if I drink 8 glasses of water a day, I'm a whole different human being. And until you go through it for 21 days, you can't get to the next level. I don't know if that answers your question.
No. This is all gold. I mean, of all the interviews I've done over my career, this is very inspiring, man. I mean, I guess, along that line, what is currently inspiring you today? Like what are you fired up about? What are you chasing today?
4 things. One is developing a new method to run faster over distance. I've completed things now. I've checked that box off. Now, how to do it a minute faster a mile. That's all I'm trying to do is gain 1 minute a mile. And it feels like Everest.
Wow.
And the second thing is how I onboard other people into our company.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, what are you doing business-wise? What is your company?
Well, the company's name Adamantine Alliance, and we do 2 things. We train, I call it executive training, where I train people one-on-one through an 8-step process. Takes about a year, and I've trained 72 people to date. And they all say at the end, it's 2.5x your life in 5 areas: your health, your ability to learn, your ability to make money, your ability to have good, substantial relationships, and your spiritual mastery. I call it those 5 areas will be 2.5 times measurably better than they were a year ago. And then we also go into businesses and turn businesses around in about 6 months. And I've hit a level that I can't grow anymore, just me, and onboarding people is the next thing to do. And it's exciting. And the other one is getting my kids' foundation set up so that they can be successful, which is harder than running ultra marathons.
How many kids you got?
I have 3. One's in her 3rd year at West Point, and right up the road from you.
Oh, wow.
And my middle boy is 18 years old and going into his senior year, and my youngest is going into 7th grade. Beautiful. All different human beings.
Yeah. Yep. That's cool, man. That's cool. And working backwards, what are the major things that you suggest for any business, like the common patterns that you see to turn businesses around? What are the common patterns that you see?
Leadership team has to be aligned.
Yeah.
If they don't have alignment at the leadership level, they're going to be on a plateau forever. And which is predicated on the notion that people are the key. Mm-hmm. And the leaders are the key, and the lock maybe is the organization. So leadership alignment has to be on point. Second one is target your space better, meaning don't try to do everything. Do one thing really well. Don't do 100 things well. Do one thing better than anybody else. And the other one is center the rest of your activity on training and recruiting the right people into your business. And make it difficult for people to work for your business. Not easy. Have a very stringent selection process that proves itself that person that you're bringing in is the right person. Because the wrong people literally destroy businesses.
Yeah, for sure. And I had a question about that too. Like, how, as a leader, can you, say you're a leader that you run the business and you need to take control and gain that alignment in your organization that hasn't been there before. What do you have to do? Do you just have to bring more intensity about your vision, or do you have to, get rid of people, all the above? What would you give as suggestions to leaders of businesses?
Well, yeah, I know that the vision and mission statement have to be cleared, but there's something that's more important, I think, earlier on, is that the boss or the series of bosses have to make it very clear of everybody's roles and responsibilities and compensation method, and then stick to it. So, if I hire you to do marketing and you then give me a plan that you're going to market, Mondays and Tuesdays, you're going to do A, B, and C, and, Wednesday through Friday, you're going to do something else. And then I'm compensating for you for that. You better do it. If you don't do it, don't pay them. What I see in businesses is that people agree to do something and don't do it and still get paid.
Isn't that crazy? So crazy.
Then you're killing yourselves. So, like if you're the executive vice president of a business and your job is to, clean the windows.
Yeah.
Or have them done. They have to be done. And so what happens is people get lazy on that. They don't do the simple things that they're actually supposed to be doing. Right. Which makes it hard. The business going like, what the hell is the business that we're in now? So interesting, but yeah.
What's funny about that too is you ever hear this statistic? It's like a Pareto distribution where like 10% of an organization does 50% of the work.
Always.
Yeah, yep. It really is crazy. Ironically, I don't really work in organizations that much anymore. I usually, I have my own thing that I do. Mm-hmm. But when I do work for organizations, I had the tendency to be one of the guys that produced a lot, but got paid less. I actually negotiated pretty well last time, but I tended to have my work not be as valued because I put in so much effort, but it wasn't maybe I didn't stand up enough for myself in that organization. And I'll just keep it on me, to be honest about it. looking back, I have a tendency to put out a lot, but not negotiate enough for what I'm worth, where it's not appreciated enough. So I believe there are people that are like that too. I mean, we're in the minority for sure, where we're over delivering on value, but not negotiating for enough. And there's people that, through the way they manage their presentation, they can negotiate for a lot. They get a lot of recognition, but they don't even really produce that much.
Yeah, those two, overpromise or underpromise and overdeliver, which is different than negotiating a higher, fee base.
Yeah.
The recommendation so I work with a lot of CEOs. Nobody overproduces.
Yeah.
Very rare. The people that overproduce are in a massive minority. The people that overpromise and underproduce are the majority, which causes a problem in business. Is the CEO then thinks, wow, look at what we're supposed to be doing, and we're not doing that.
Sure.
It becomes a whole different anomaly is if people go out and it's not my job to clean up the office, but I clean the office as well. That organization has a higher up market. Not because of loss of revenue, but everybody's doing more than they're supposed to be doing. So then I can expand. So it's hard to scale a business if everybody's promising to do one thing and does something else.
Right.
And then like, well, how do we grow? Well, shit, nobody's doing what they're supposed to do.
Right.
But yeah.
And what people are ultimately supposed to do is just get the result that they're promising.
Yes.
Which is so crazy. It's like you hire people to say, clean the windows, and then they don't clean the windows. They buy the spray for the windows, they buy the thing to do it, and they clean the top half, but they don't do the whole window. And then they expect to get paid, and they'll make an excuse like, well, it takes time to clean the whole window. Realistically, you could have just gotten water from the sink and a paper towel and just cleaned the freaking thing.
Yeah, that's a great analogy in business. They promise to do it, and then they do it differently or not do it. And then they have drama surrounding that you can't say anything about.
Yeah.
Then they'll throw in another card, the race card or whatever. Like, dude, did you clean the window? Well, I had a fight at home. First of all, did you clean the window? Well, I'm sick. Did you clean the window? So it's hard for organizations to get moving because the simple shit isn't being handled well. Indeed.
And this is my big problem with marketing is I used to work with this. I used to work in cryptocurrency. I mean, I've worked in a bunch of different industries, but in crypto, it was an emerging market. People didn't really know what it was. So you had this whole thing called ICOs where people would raise money to say, build a new Facebook. They'd raise $500 million from unsophisticated investors, people that didn't really know about blockchain, all this. They just paid them $500 million. They wanted to get in on it. And then they just wouldn't build it. They wouldn't build it at all. And they just took the money and said they were going to do something. They never even did it. It's really crazy. So I eventually got very tired of working in that type of marketing where it was like, you're just hyping something up and there's no product behind it. There's no result behind it. And, I just felt unethical about it. I felt like I'm helping pump up this thing that just isn't really producing results. And eventually, it led me to do a lot of reading, a lot of studying. And what I found was the best way to market most businesses that they're missing, they're afraid to spend money on ads. They're afraid to put money back into the business. Mm-hmm. And they're afraid to very specifically figure out what they're selling. They're very specifically, like you said, niche down. That's like they have to commit to one thing that they're really good at and figure out if it works or not, if people are actually willing to buy it or not, because that's scary, because that could mean that you have to pivot or you have to figure out a new business or, you were just wrong. And you can't have an ego in this. You have to just do what works. And, if the market doesn't like what you're selling, you just have to pivot.
Pivot quick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Quicker that you have things that you're measuring. So niche market, sell earphones, whatever, as an analogy. Try it for a while. What's the ROI on it? If there's no ROI, maybe you need to do it longer or do it differently. Eventually you got to say it's yes or no, and then pivot. And the quicker that you adjust off course to another thing that you can measure and then analyze and evaluate, the more effective that you'll be. But people stick with the boat until it's a Titanic at the base of the ocean.
Yeah, man.
We rode it all the way down. Dude, you should have jumped out earlier,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a huge mistake. And it's, that's why the failure rate's so high. Yep. It's just failure to adapt, but
having the right team and the right people cannot be spoke of highly enough. If you get the right people, they will make the wrong thing work.
Amen.
But the right people never get on board. It's not even compensation. Most successful people won't take compensation. They see it.
Right.
I'll take an equity position. I'll help you get it started, and I'll deliver A, B, and C. And at 6 months mark, we'll figure out if we need to cap in or not. But everybody makes the wrong decisions up front. I bring on my brother or my brother's friend's child that doesn't have any skill set.
Yep.
It falls apart. Good ideas fall apart quicker than like there's 100 great ideas that could be multi-million-dollar ideas that fall apart because the wrong people are involved.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's like you can't, maybe there's a gene for it. Maybe there's like a particular type of person that, like you said, they can see an opportunity, when, before everybody else can see it. But, that's 100% true. Yeah. Just brief thing, like the cryptocurrency company I'm talking about, I did work for them for free for a month. I busted my ass for free for them for a month. And this guy worked me to the damn bone. The guy that ran that company was, he was a very successful hedge fund manager. He owned his own hedge fund, and that guy that guy was the hardest person I've ever had to work for. He was a tough guy. But I did that for a month, and then we had a tough negotiation for a salary. And then after that, we wound up doing really well. That company wound up going from zero to making a lot of money. It was probably one of the things I'm most proud of that I've ever done in my life, was to be a part of that team. It was interesting.
You said something there that I've noticed in 5 years of after retirement that I recommend to everybody is everybody says there may not be a lot of jobs out there. And the way that you articulate, I said, well, you can go to a company that you want to work and say, I'll work for free for a month. Yeah. Most of them will say yes. And that allows them to not have any risk in it. They evaluate your skill set and your ability. And then they have to have the balls to negotiate a contract.
Yeah.
And there's opportunities everywhere. Don't expect something up front.
Exactly.
Prove yourself, then negotiate. Don't negotiate up front unless you have a skill set that you can deliver right now, which is very rare.
Yeah. Yeah. Results. I think
results are everything.
Results ultimately, this is the big thing I've learned, is that results are all that matter. If you can bring in sales for a company today, that's a great skill set, but you got to really know that you can do it.
Yep.
And of course there's uncertainty and everything, but you have to actually know that you can do that for sure. Yep. Anyway, man, I'm sorry. I talk a lot. But I had a couple other questions that people asked me to ask you. And again, this is one of my favorite interviews I've ever done. Thank you so much for coming on. Seriously. One question was, how do you deal with uncertainty in your own life? And what were some of the scariest situations that you've ever been in? So 2 different questions.
Yeah, uncertainty is go back to simple. The moment you think things are uncertain, start doing the simple things, the basic things again. And no matter how crazy things get back to the basics faster than anybody else. Because the basics become certain. Like you can drink water, you know what I mean? Drink water. So if you get crazy, take a step out, do something that you know you can do that is going to help the situation. And then keep doing simple things through levels of uncertainty. And then what was the scariest thing that I've ever done?
Yeah.
It was on that 2009 deployment, and wrote about it in the book, chapter 9, I think it is. We had been in country for about 3 months, and we took on a very difficult target area deep in the mountains of central Afghanistan, knowing that we were going to be outnumbered when we hit the ground, and which wasn't a big deal. But right when we hit the ground, the helos left, we got rocketed, meaning we got attacked, and we're 4 miles from the target area that we were supposed to be at by plan, but we had to fight our way for 4 miles, and it took us about 7 hours to fight 4 miles through the mountains. We get to the target area and encounter the Taliban there, again, big firefight. And then we somewhat won that battle, and so we set up to stay there all day long in a defensive position. An offensive unit moving to a defensive position is scary. It's not, it doesn't feel right. Now I have to sit here? Dude, we're just in a firefight. Now we have to sit in one building and not move. So we're there all day long. It's like 130 degrees out. Everybody's dying, terrible conditions. And about 45 minutes before we were supposed to, before dark, we got in one of the worst firefights that I've ever been in ever. And I remember I was sitting against a wall, against my back up against the wall, and I was looking at this mountaintop, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, it looks like red bees. And I even said it out loud. This guy from the mountaintop was shooting at us, and tracer rounds were coming right at me. I duck out of the way, and I'm like, oh wow, this game on, and rockets start hitting us. Shit. And the rounds are following me as I'm rolling away from the wall, and I'm like, oh shit. So I jump into this window. A rocket hits right outside the window, blows me back into the room, and I'm laying on the ground, and I don't know if I was knocked out, but I was conscious. I'm laying there going, I can't move. I'm like, oh shit, I'm dead. I remember saying to myself, I must be dead because I can't move. And I'm seeing bullets hit the wall, and I see this one bullet spinning right on the ground in front of my face. And I remember thinking, well, I'm dead. And I was thinking about my wife and my kids and other things I'd done in my life, and I don't know how much time transpired. And in my mind, my wife, Stacy, grabs my face and says, don't fear dying. It makes you weak, and fight your way back to us. And I literally stood up then. And I went over to the wall, got my gun, got my body armor on. I went up next to the window that I jumped through, and a round hits right next to my eye. I hold up something in the window because I want to figure out where they're shooting from. I hold something up, and then one round goes right through this thing I held up. I'm like, well, shit, he's on that mountaintop, which is about 635 yards away. And I'm processing this as, damn, this shit's getting real. And I try to call my guys, and nobody's responding. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm the last one alive. I'm like, well, I just got to keep doing these simple things that I know how to do. I can fight until I'm done. And so I lay on the back, I lay in the room, put a blanket over me. I crawl up next to the window, and I'm looking at that mountaintop, and I start at the bottom right side, and I go up to the apex, and I'm coming down the left side of the mountain trying to find where they are. And if I moved out any further into where I could see better, there was a light ray coming through the window, and I'm like, man, if I move any further, he's going to see me.
Oh, man.
So I'm like, well, I have to, because I think he's in that last section of the mountain. So as I move out, I see his head, squeeze the trigger. And right when I squeeze the trigger, a round bounces off my helmet, and I thought I was hit. So I roll out of the way, and no pain. It just hit my helmet. And the scariest thing wasn't that. The scariest thing is that I had to do it again. I had to confirm that I hit him, or I had to keep shooting at him. So probably the only time I really was gripped by fear was then. Like, dude, I know he can see me, and I got to do it again. There's no other way for me to shoot him. So I rolled out again, squeezed the trigger. Right after I squeezed the trigger, I'd seen that I'd hit him because there was blood everywhere. So, I tell the story is everybody gets 3 or 4 rounds. So I shot 3 more rounds in him, and I'm seeing him hit. And I stood up in the back of the room, and I started shaking because all the adrenaline starts wearing itself off. Mm-hmm. And then one of my buddies falls in front of the window in front of me and is laying outside in the courtyard, and rounds are everywhere. Rockets are still hitting. And I go out and grab him, pull him in. I got hit twice in the breastplate. Didn't know it at the time. And I'm patting him down to see if he was dead or alive. And he wakes up and he goes, "Chief," uses the F word, "we are screwed." I'm like, "What happened?" He goes, "They're everywhere." I'm like, "What do you mean they're everywhere?" He goes, "They're everywhere." I'm like, "How many are there?" He goes, "Probably 32 of them." I'm like, "Where's everybody else?" He goes, "I don't know." I said, "Where's Mike?" He goes, "He got blown off outside." I'm like, "Oh my God." So he and I kind of talk a little bit, and I'm like, "Hey, you and I are going to fight till we're dead. Any problem?" He goes, "Nope." But he had then really clear about what was going on. Stop all the confusion, fight till you die. A SEAL can process that. So we ran across the courtyard, found out where my other guys were, rallied them by giving them a simple task to do. In the middle of it, falling apart. It's like everything's falling apart, can't move. We're outnumbered, 9 of us there. And I just gave them a simple task to do, and they executed on that. We ran out of ammo after about 45 minutes. And we still have 20 minutes or so before dark. And a couple of jets check on. We asked them to drop bombs everywhere. And they dropped a bomb about 150 yards out from our compound and leveled everything. And we were supposed to die when that bomb hit. It was so close and such a big bomb that we were all supposed to die. We don't die, which was pretty cool. And that was the scariest thing I've ever gone through. And I was done. After that, I had no energy, couldn't stand up, had nothing left. And we fell asleep for about 45 minutes in the middle of hell. Greatest nap I ever had in my life.
Yeah, I remember that chapter in your book, man. But hearing you tell it, it's so fucking intense. That's so crazy, man. Holy shit, dude.
But after that, I have not had a level of scared at all. Like starting a new business, it was like, "Are you scared?" I'm like, "Nah."
Yeah, you're probably pretty good after that.
Yeah. Terrible things happen. It ain't as bad as that. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, that's I think the most striking thing about that to me is just the level of fear that people have day to day. I'll speak for myself, and I talk to people about this. People are afraid of the smallest things, but it just goes to show you that you can overcome those fears and take action in the face of something that's so such a small chance of survival, like something that's so unbelievably overwhelming. Like I'm a big fan of like Jocko Willink's podcast, and I was just listening to one yesterday about some of the battles in World War II and the overwhelming odds that they faced, or World War I. Some of the type of warfare they went through is so crazy. It just makes what most people go through day to day. We're such fucking snowflakes. Yeah. Like we get so overwhelmed and so gripped by fear by things that are just not, they're just not a big deal at all. You know,
Yeah, I call that virtual fear.
yeah,
Not, and I don't come from experience of living in New York City. A lot of times I do business there, but a lot of the fears that people may have are virtual. And
yeah,
they're usually emotionally based. How I look, how somebody else is thinking about me. I failed a couple times at it. I can't do it. All that stuff. What's going to happen? Uh, and the real fear is facing things that are harmful. And then there's virtual fear, which feels like everything's going to go south, but nothing's going to happen. If you don't get a job, it's okay. You're not going to die. You know what I mean? If you're late, you're not going to die. You know what I mean? Very few things are going to cause you to die. Very few things that people encounter on a day-to-day basis are going to do damage to them. But they interact with them like it's, oh my God, you have no idea what's going to happen. Yeah, you're going to lose your job. Who cares? There's another one out there.
yeah, yeah.
But
And that's
Jocko is legit.
yeah.
He is who he says he is, and he masters his space better than anybody I know.
Shit, man. Yeah, that guy. I mean, anybody that's served, is a massive inspiration to me. And I think I think it's a little bit of a shame that more people are not. They don't study, the mentality of a military guy, especially an elite guy like a Navy SEAL or Army Ranger, any of these guys that Marines, any of these guys that really, just they put themselves on the line. They deal with a real actual fear. They put themselves in incredibly difficult situations. And then you have this split in society today where you have people that are so sensitive and so soft that, their primary virtue is how offended they could get.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's, I do think that in the future, the pendulum will swing back because that's just human nature, for, the past few years, people have gotten so sensitive and so snowflakey and so easily offended by stuff. I do believe that at some point in the near future, it's going to swing back and people will really honor grit and determination and toughness and commitment and everything. But what do you think about, American culture these days, PC culture, outrage culture, the way people disrespect, America and disrespect, our police force and everything like that? What do you think about all of this?
Wow, there's like a lot of questions there.
I'm sorry.
The reason why we are allowed to get away with it now is because there's money everywhere. If there weren't opportunities everywhere and there wasn't a handout from the government, nobody would have PC. Go work, do something, get paid for what you do.
Right.
Whether it's, trash collecting, driving a taxi, there's no low job or high job. But do work, do something.
Right.
And there's so much plenty now. There's plentiful work out there. There's more job opportunities than people alive on the planet. It's not the reverse. Just people don't want to work.
Right.
They don't want to, sweep the street. Why not? Do something. Well, I can get a government stipend by not doing anything. And then you're not treating me right. Dude, okay.
Right.
Making it so hard for the people to actually excel. Yeah, politically correct is a selling point. It's a marketing selling point for people not to work.
Mm.
Funny thing, growing up in the SEAL community, there's no PC. There's just straightforward stuff. You did it or you didn't. Well, I really wanted to. Okay, try again next year. Well, I was abused by my parents. Okay, who cares? Did
Yeah.
you do it? Can you do 50 push-ups? Well, I have a bad upbringing. Nobody cares. Do
Right.
shit.
Right.
And that type of environment is very conducive to upward growth. As long as you can do something, nobody cares about your past. Nobody cares about what you wear, all that stuff. Your attitude. Nobody cares about attitude. Do something. Every day, do something, contribute to you, contribute to your family, your business every single day. And don't ever excuse yourself from it.
It's so true, man. It's so true.
I don't know why that doesn't exist. I face that in businesses. People, are PC about things, and HR departments are terrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, the great people don't. You ever notice a great person ever having an excuse why things didn't work out?
No.
Like I said, it's totally my fault. Didn't work, and we'll start over.
Yeah. 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 Exactly. They just get it done. I think it's because we just, the major media outlets don't put out a message like this, and the school system is controlled by the same people that control the media outlets, and they just don't want to, for whatever reason, put out an empowering message like this. I guess I'm sure they have.
There was that one shooting that just happened this past few days, right?
There've been a few, man, actually.
And I'm not doing PC work here, but
Me either.
I grew up in a community where guns were everywhere. Not in the SEAL community, in my high school. Everybody hunted. We had trucks, and the guns were in the gun racks in the truck. Oh. And you wore like a buck knife to school. Damn. And you fought with your hands. And you got spanked at school.
Damn.
And nobody would have ever brought a knife or pulled a knife out in a fight. Nobody. Because the environment taught you not to do that. Your parents would have kicked your ass. The school system would have, reprimanded you hard. And you would never gone out to your truck to get a gun and go shoot somebody with it. And you wouldn't have gotten very far because everybody else would have shot you for doing it. And this is Thom Shea's opinion of violence. Violence comes from the individual, not the implementation of it. A violent person is going to hurt you. If you're not able to counter them, they're going to take advantage of you.
Absolutely.
And guns are not the issue. It's people are the issue. Curb the people, not the gun.
Yeah. That's one of the dumbest arguments ever, that if you somehow take away a tool that can kill somebody, you're going to stop violence.
Yeah.
You tell that to, people that run over other people with trucks, or people that, push people into the subway platform.
Yep.
It's just the person. And
yep.
I think what you were talking about before is so something that's missing from our culture now too. Here, like I live in New York City, everybody thinks that the police are going to save them, if they get into a fight, or the government's going to protect them. There's no individual, people don't really have a sense of individual responsibility or power to regulate behavior. And it sounds like where you grew up, it's like, if you're acting like a dick, people are they're gonna come in and check you. Your parents are gonna check you. But here in New York City and some of the coastal elite areas like California, New York, Connecticut, whatever, it's just not like that. People rely on, teachers to discipline their kids. Parents are working, 80 hours a week, and they're not even parenting their kids. It's a different time, man. It's a crazy thing. And, I guess that's another good question, is like, how can you bring some of that discipline, decency back to culture in America, which is what I think we kind of stand for too, is what makes us really great too, is having that.
The discipline and the what you do in the face. That going trend of bullies. There are no bullies if you learn to defend yourself.
I like that. Yeah.
As you learn martial arts, you get to the point where you're like, nobody's going to bully me.
Yeah.
And I know how to run fast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'll avoid any fight in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Not interested. But, if I have to throw down, I'm going to defend myself and my, property because I'm trained.
Yeah.
So if you train yourself, there's that old saying, know yourself and seek self-improvement. Do that. Know what your body's capable of doing. So you can walk down Harlem and either run faster than everybody or defend yourself.
Yeah, man.
Because the cops can't get there in time, everybody. They can't.
They're not.
They're just going to sweep up the body parts and do a report on it. The damage is done. But anybody that is competent in the use of their body and a defensive weapon never has any trouble.
Yeah, and man, it's rough up there for sure. So in terms of martial arts, what are your favorite like if you had to suggest major martial arts or self-defense systems for, say, New Yorkers? We can't legally carry a gun.
Yeah.
Legally carry a knife. We can carry a pen. We carry scissors maybe, but we can't carry, like anything actually meant to do damage. Only the criminals can have those, by the way. They can carry those. We can't carry law-abiding citizens. What do you think that we should practice? Like, what would be like a good, couple of things to study?
Mixed martial arts has created its own useful skill set. Jiu-jitsu is cool if it's you and one other person.
Right.
Striking is cool until you actually hit somebody, when your hand erupts. Without a glove on, an adult man hitting somebody with his fist will hurt his fist. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
So mixed martial arts has tied in everything relative in the martial art industry.
You there? Shit. Hey, Thom, you there? You froze up.